Trapmore Gang, it was recently reported that David could potentially be getting indicted for the Celeste Rivas murder, but even more chilling, and you might not know this, but he could be facing the death penalty. And not only could he be facing the death penalty, but the woman apparently responsible for prosecuting this case is so deadly when it comes to putting people down for their crimes, all right, and putting a DP on the table. She is nicknamed the Sniper. I shit you not, okay? This is facts. This is what's going down. So this was reported, okay, David likely to be indicted in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez murder case, okay? This is a very sad case. Rest in peace to Celeste. We're trying to keep her name alive. We're trying to keep this story hot and warm because everybody needs to, like, raise up a fuss until something actually happens, until we get justice. We all need to raise up a fuss. We need to keep her name alive. We need to keep this story alive, okay? But also, the prosecutors that are working on this case behind the scenes, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, what are the cops doing? Why aren't the cops doing anything? They've been so quiet." Well, look, the prosecutors, the district attorneys, everybody that's working on this case apparently is very serious players. So, apparently, leading this indictment is Deputy DA Beth Silverman. Okay. This is Beth Silverman, an award-winning prosecutor, right? They ain't handing out these awards for nothing. Okay. And this is serious. The honorees of this award, this is in 2021, the honorees of this award were recognized for outstanding investigative work, untangling a multi-layered fraud scheme, aiding in a cold case murder, okay, murder probe, organizing a training program designed to improve the safety of first responders and people living with mental illness. Now, there's a lot of different staff members that have been honored, but specifically, all right, Beth Silverman, who is actually pictured up here, okay, it says Deputy District Attorneys Margaret Rizzo and Beth Silverman received the Centurion Award for Excellence in Cold Case Investigations with Technical Support. They were recognized with a team of agencies that utilized investigative genetic genealogy to help identify a suspect who now faces murder charges in connection with a 1986 killing of a Burbank woman and a 1981 slaying of a woman found in Montclair. This is who's on your case. This is who's on the case. Okay, so it's going to be a long day. The David case is moving slow, but she going back into the vault. She using new genealogy to get people down on 1986 and 1981 killings. And you've got people facing murder charges. Now, apparently, she is indeed nicknamed the Sniper for her deadly accuracy in securing the death penalty in cases. Check this clip out.
We were in for a enormous fight. The prosecutor they assigned to the case had never lost. She liked to pick off people with the death penalty.
That's apparently her, all right, in this series that they were talking about. Now, for the record, this case that Netflix trailer was from is from this film Long Shot, all right? This is a short documentary film about Juan Catalan, who was arrested for a murder that apparently he didn't commit, okay? So he did go toe-to-toe with the Sniper, all right, and apparently ended up beating it, okay? This was a crazy case where they actually used footage from Curb Your Enthusiasm, raw footage from Curb Your Enthusiasm to prove his innocence, basically. And apparently that footage proved that he was at a Dodgers game and instead of committing the murder. So, and this is an LA Times article where it basically says LA County prosecutor Beth Silverman was nicknamed the Sniper because she had never lost a murder case. But one of probably her most infamous, realistically, probably her most infamous hat, okay, is this guy, the Grim Sleeper. Okay, this was a 2016 case. It's probably her most famous prosecution. This was a serial killer who basically was responsible for at least 10 murders and one attempt in Los Angeles, California from 1984 to 2007. He basically took a massive 14-year break from his crimes between 1988 and 2002, but he basically eventually got caught, and his trial began February 2016, and it would be the Sniper that would basically put him away. And she did pretty much catch the hat, right? On June the 6th, 2016, an LA County jury sentenced Franklin to death. Now, he died in prison, okay? It was very, very unusual. It said his cause of death was never released, but you know what I'm saying? He would have still been out here serial killing if it wasn't for the Sniper putting him away. Okay, so that's still that I give her the body. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like she took that piece of dirt off the streets, and hey, he died in jail. You know what I'm saying? R.I.P. Bozo. Like, who cares? But basically, this was a huge case. This was infamous for her. And basically, this kind of is how she built her name as far as, you know, somebody who is not scared to put the needle on fools that do crimes in L.A.
Accused serial killer Lonnie Franklin walked into court today, nicknamed the Grim Sleeper, because of a 14-year gap in his alleged killing spree.
The evidence in this case will tell a story of a serial killer who stalked the streets of South Los Angeles.
Starting in the summer of 1985, prosecutors say Franklin murdered 9 women and 1 teenage girl.
Almost all of them were hidden under debris, behind bushes, in dumpsters, or covered with dirty mattresses left in alleyways or other trash.
An 11th victim survived, now expected to testify as a star witness. Authorities say an advance in DNA technology that seems straight from a crime scene drama broke open the case.
This case is one of those precedent-setting cases in that they're using what we call familiar DNA to get to the defendant.
Police had taken a DNA sample from Franklin's son in an unrelated criminal case. That sample closely resembled DNA found at the Grim Sleeper crime scenes.
So she's getting old school, she's getting new DNA methods, she's taking old cases, and you best believe there's going to be some DNA involved in this case, all right? Yes, we don't know who did what yet. Yeah, we don't know who's you best believe there's going to be some DNA, and you best believe the sniper is going to be on the case, okay? This is going to be a tough one to beat, all right? That DNA evidence, one eyewitness, and basically, you know, the defense was trying to argue that someone else had access to the guns and the vehicles used in the crime, but it didn't work out. And Beth, the sniper Silverman, was able to put this fool away into jail with the death penalty, and eventually he would lose his life in jail that she put him away in. So, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to her.
The defense attorney for accused serial killer Lonnie Franklin Jr. continued to hammer on what he began to tell the jury yesterday, that this case against Franklin is based on nothing but illusion and deception. And the DNA, he said, is faulty. Don't believe it.
So how do you determine that all the DNA found on his common profile could only be Lonnie Franklin and not anybody else who's related to him when you have never been given a single statistic?
This is going to be David's attorney, right? I feel like in a year and a half's time, this is going to be David's attorney talking about, oh, anybody could have, like, that Tesla was just parked on the street. Like, anybody could have, like, how do you not DNA?
Based upon related individuals.
Franklin is accused of killing 10 women and attempting to kill an 11th one, a killing spree that began more than 31 years ago. The prosecution contends that his DNA evidence, ballistics evidence, and the account of the eyewitness who survived the attack that links Franklin to all of these crimes and that he acted alone. But today, Amster said this.
It is our position that there is a nephew, our youngster, who is involved, that did each and every murder, and that there is not sufficient evidence to show Lonnie Franklin did that. And this is a reasonable interpretation under the circumstantial evidence instruction.
Maybe that's what they're going to pull out, man. David's attorney's going to pull out, well, I think there was some sort of nephew or youngster that did everything. That didn't work, and obviously it went the way it went. And, you know, Beth Silverman put another notch on the...
Jurors decided on the death penalty for a Los Angeles serial killer known as the Grim Sleeper. Last month, 63-year-old Lonnie Franklin was convicted of 10 murders dating back to 1985. Prosecutors say he targeted vulnerable black women, sexually assaulting and killing them before dumping their bodies in dumpsters or alleys. The investigation into the Grim Sleeper murders didn't make much progress in the 1980s, partially due to the crack cocaine epidemic that plagued southern Los Angeles during that time. Community members also felt police didn't work as hard to solve the slayings because most victims were poor and black. The killer got the nickname the Grim Sleeper because police believed he stopped killing for 14 years between 1988 and 2002. Investigators were finally able to break open the case when Franklin's son was arrested. His DNA was similar to genetic material found on the Grim Sleeper's victims. Police were eventually able to trace that back to Franklin. Prosecutors alleged that Franklin killed at least 5 additional women, and investigators think that number could be even higher. Police found pictures of 180 women at Franklin's house, many of whom have never been found. For Newsy, I'm Grant Sunison.
So, these are pretty heinous crimes that she's able to prosecute, right? Going all the way back. So you best believe something with a whole bunch of Discord messages and surveillance cameras and Teslas and DNA and the body's been found. You best believe she's going to be on the case. Now, more recently, okay, Beth the Sniper Silverman also took on the trial of Monica Sementilli, okay, who was actually accused of masterminding the murder of her own husband.
Fabio Sementilli was found stabbed to death in his LA home this past January. The body discovered in the backyard by his 17-year-old daughter.
There was evidence that a burglary had occurred. It was what we call a hot corral burglary murder, and that's what it was initially reported as.
The killing was a shock to Sementilli's Canadian family and to the international hairstyling community. The 49-year-old had moved to LA from the GTA to work as a stylist to the stars about 8 years ago with his wife Monica and their 2 daughters.
Literally 10 days before he passed, and I was in their home, living in the home for 4 days, visiting, and I saw a loving couple.
More shocking than his death would be the news that came 5 months later. In June, Fabio's wife, Monica, and a man named Robert Baker were arrested and charged with capital murder.
In this case, the evidence took us to the wife, and we determined that the wife had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend is the one who actually did the stabbing, we believe.
On Friday, the pair were indicted in LA by a grand jury of 17 who determined there's enough evidence to take the case to trial. If convicted, the pair could face life in prison or even the death penalty.
Listen to what was just said, right? Listen carefully.
17 who determined their pair were in.
And the boyfriend is the one who actually did the stabbing, we believe.
Listen to this.
On Friday, the pair were indicted in LA by a grand jury of 17 who.
They were indicted in LA by a grand jury of 17. And what's going on right now? It's the grand jury on David, okay? And how did this turn out? It was a very complex case, a very complex conspiracy. But Beth the Sniper Silverman was able to secure a guilty verdict for both Monica and the boyfriend that she got to commit the murder, and they got duly cooked.
And the family saying after 8 long years, they have justice.
Today marks the day of healing.
The family of famed hairdresser Fabio Sementilli reacts after Monica Sementilli, Fabio's wife, is found guilty for their brother's murder.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of murder.
Monica Sementilli sobbed after the verdicts were read, guilty for the murder of her late husband and guilty of conspiracy or helping to plan Fabio's murder. January of 2017, Fabio was found stabbed to death in the backyard of the family's Woodland Hills home. It happened just a few days before the couple's 20th anniversary. In the 8 years since the murder, Robert Baker, the man Monica Sementilli was having an affair with, pled no contest back in 2023 to killing Sementilli. He's serving life without parole. A third person, Christopher Austin, pled guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for his testimony. He'll be sentenced next month.
Justice was served today. It's the most beautiful day for our family. Our spirits are lifted. My brother can now rest in peace. And the murderers that have deceived him are exactly where they belong today.
We are overjoyed that she will spend the rest of her life in jail. No parole.
Monica Sementilli's defense team says it will appeal.
We're very disappointed. We continue to believe that Monica had nothing to do with her husband's murder, and we will pursue every legal avenue to obtain her eventual exoneration and her freedom.
Cooked.
Monica Sementilli is due to be sentenced in June. She faces life without the possibility of parole. Reporting live in...
So they did give her life. Okay, they did give her life. I've got it right here. No death penalty, unfortunately, but did get life. Okay, Monica was sentenced to life in prison, not coming home, just straight up put away. All right. There you go. Prosecuted by Beth Silverman. All right. The LAPD of the Major Crimes Division and the Robbery Homicide Division led the investigation. You know what they're leading, okay? And a lot of people are loving them for this, okay? This was on cases we follow on Reddit, which I'm going to follow now. Let's go. Appreciation post for Beth Silverman and Heather Stegel from the Monica Sementilli trial. These two badass prosecutors absolutely hit the ball out the park in this case. They battled a large team of defense attorneys who had a bucket of money, thanks to Monica's family, to buy defense witnesses to say what Levine wanted them to say, put witnesses on who were obvious liars, and entice Monica's daughters and sister to deny the obvious and testify to Monica's innocence. And these ladies foiled the defense at every single turn. Law enforcement built a Mount Everest of evidence against Monica's active and eager participation in the conspiracy to murder Fabio, which Beth and Heather masterfully presented to the jury. Levine and company never stood a chance. They're both incredible. I've been so impressed by these women. I hope this jury doesn't have any lunatics on it, right? Apparently they was killing it in there, all right? They was killing it in there. Hey, listen, man. David, you might have a fight on your hands. I ain't gonna hold you, David. So this is her giving the sentencing statement for that case. So if you want to see, all right, if you want to see Beth Silverman, all right, cooking a fool, and this might be what we see in the next year and a half, or in the next year, and then who knows how long this trial's going to take. But this is, David, this is what you might be up against if this indictment is handed down as TMZ are inferring.
Categorically disagree with defense counsel's categorization of what went down in this case. This is a defendant who is extremely deserving of the sentence of life without parole. I know from past history in our office, perhaps had there been a different administration, I remember a case regarding the Green Widow who did something similar to this, and she received the death penalty. This is one.
She got the, I ain't gonna lie, she trying to catch a hat. She got that bloodthirst. She said, hey, listen, last time we cooked a fool this bad, we was hitting the DP, we was catching bodies. So he's saying, hey, if the best I can get out of this under a different administration is life without the possibility of parole, I'll take it. But she said, I'm trying to get that DP.
To this, and she received the death penalty. This is one of the
she a real gravedigger pallbearer.
Most premeditated, calculated, devious murder conspiracies I've prosecuted during my 31 years at the district attorney's office.
And that was before you hadn't even seen the David case yet.
And as this court knows, I have handled numerous cases involving serial killers. This is a defendant who, but for her actions and her decisions, her husband, Fabio Sementilli, who gets lost in all of this circus that goes on every time we have one of these cases, he would still be alive today. This was a
She's so compelling and so convincing. She's animated. She's saying the victim's been lost in all of this circus. She trying to give fools the needle. David's in trouble, man. And any accomplices, you are cooked. I'm sure you're watching. I know you guys just be at home watching this content. Bruh, the sniper.
Completely senseless murder driven solely by this defendant's greed and her lust, which we saw on full display during the trial that took place over the course of several months this year, based on her desire to get rid of her husband because he no longer served her purposes, and she needed to have a way to fund her life together with Robert Baker, who she chose over her husband, and whether her kids want to believe it or not, over her children, because they never ever even came up in any of the conversations that she had with so many people who testified in this matter. It's incredibly despicable as far as motives go, because again, without her, and her plotting and her planning the murder of her husband, he would be alive today. But then you add to it the lengths this defendant went to in order to conceal and destroy evidence, and how time and time again she got others to do her dirty work for her, including her lover, so that he could get the murder done and she could take a step back and pretend to still be this loving wife, which we all know was a complete act. And once and again, it showed through the admissions that she was caught making in the jail lockup, through the letters about getting rid of her husband and wanting to marry Robert Baker, through the entire complex setup of this time frame for that day, shows a level of sophistication and planning that I rarely see in these kinds of questions, these kinds of cases. There is no question but that this defendant was the mastermind behind the murder of Fabio Sementilli.
She knows how to cook, and she got the nails painted just like David. She's slaying. She's slaying in two types of ways right now. Okay, she's trying to dish out the death penalty if she could. If she could, she would have two bodies.
Only had to listen to Robert Baker's testimony for about 10 minutes before you got the clear picture of who was the mastermind between the two. Mr. Baker isn't smart enough to even follow up his lies with consistency.
She's so smart because she's showing the court. She's saying that this guy's not even smart enough to follow up his lies with consistencies. This guy was a pawn. This is the devious demon woman, a sociopath, right? She says one of the most devious conspiracies I've ever seen, all right? She says she betrayed it. She's saying that she is the one that masterminded the whole thing. She sees through the lie. She sees through, you got him to do your dirty work. You manipulated him. I ain't gonna lie. David thinks he's smart. David thinks he's super smart. He feels like he's playing the pawns. He's playing the chess moves. He's dropping music videos with dead bodies being put in trunks. He thinks he's a genius. Look how smart this woman is. This is a strong, powerful woman who is going to cook. He's going to see through all your little bullshit. Oh, I can't tell you whose voice it was on the song because of copyright. Bruh, she ain't going for that. Beth Silverman ain't going for that. She going to find out whose voice was on that song. You best believe it.
There was nothing that was credible about his testimony, and the jury so found. In addition to that, we had the testimony from Christopher Austin, and while he was kept out of the center of the conspiracy between the defendant and her lover, Robert Baker, he knew enough that this was being done at her behest. And as I've said from the beginning of the trial, this case was about the ultimate betrayal. This was one that I'm sure Fabio Sementilli never could have imagined in his wildest nightmares was coming, that his wife was literally plotting his murder with her lover. It's an absolute betrayal, not only of Fabio Sementilli, the victim in this case, but of her children, who have been brainwashed by her lies and her deception. And that's their choice. They're adults now. If they choose not to face the truth, that's on them. But we're here to do a job. We've done our job. The jury did their job. And we're here to hold the defendant, the main player, the heavy in this case, responsible for her actions. She used her family, her children, her parents, her sister, to do her dirty work for her, to lie to their father in order to cover up this scandalous affair that she had been having for at least a year, and God knows what else she used them for. She manipulated everybody, all of her friends, all of her family, anybody who came into contact with her for the most minor of things, such as buying a vehicle. We heard about that. Fabio's co-workers, his colleagues from a multi-billion-dollar company fell all over themselves trying to help her and the family after the murder, and yet they were treated with such disgust and disdain on the stand as if those people somehow had done something wrong because they were reaching out to help.
Look how cooked he is. He's fried. He's knowing, bruh, she get a life without possibility of parole. He's just thinking of that appeal money. He's thinking she got the budget for an appeal because you getting cooked.
Defendant who they thought was this innocent widow who had lost her husband by some horrific tragedy, not of her own making. What we have in this case, just to be clear, although I think it was very clear through the trial, was the fact that this defendant and Robert Baker are a perfect match. You have two sociopaths who are completely incapable of any feeling of remorse or guilt from the beginning.
If I was somebody that was in David's orbit that maybe had something to, if I moved a car, or I hushed something up, or I deleted some messages off Discord, I'd be watching this video very, very scared. I would be shitting my pants watching this. I would be literally pooping my pants thinking, is this... She ain't leaving no stone unturned. She ain't just going for the main one. She said, if you can't get the main one, you better get his guys. She getting everybody. If I had anything to do with this, so you are cooked.
Beginning until the end, and even now, the defendant is sowing a news story about how she somehow was taken advantage of by Robert Baker. And the stories, the defenses just continue to change as she sits in the jail. I think she's probably even convinced herself of that at this point, which is completely typical of sociopathic behavior. They only feel sorry for themselves, believing they're the true victims here, as proven over and over and over again by their appalling recorded conversations in custody. And then you have the outrageous manner that this defendant and her lover chose in order to execute Fabio Sementilli, to murder him in his own backyard, to stab him to death in such an egregious and evil manner as he was relaxing and working out at the pool.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie, like, if she feels that passionately about the man being stabbed in his own yard, I don't know what, I'm scared. Like, this is a woman of fury. This is a tough, strong, smart, independent woman who will absolutely cook you, sees through your bullshit. I don't want to be around when she's given her deliberation on a dead minor being found in the trunk of a car and being left there for an extended period of time while you was off on... I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but bruh, if this is how she's reacting to this case, she gonna be mad as it's gonna be fire and fury in that courtroom when David goes to trial, if he does. If TMZ's reporting is to be believed.
Thinking that he had his whole life in front of him as his 50th birthday was quickly approaching, having bought himself...
Whole life in front of him at 50th birthday. Celeste was 14 when she passed away. I do not want to be in the courtroom when this is going down. Bro.
Finally, at the age of 49 and a half, a used Porsche because he felt like he had earned the right to do that. And yet his entire life, his entire future, was savagely taken from him for absolutely no reason, stabbed to death in his own backyard. And again, we're talking in this case about a victim who was totally innocent, totally vulnerable. As much as she now tries to dirty him up and convince her daughters, oh, he was a dirtbag and he was having an affair, none of that had any evidence to support it. It's just, once again, a way to try to make herself look better, which is, again, typical of sociopathic behavior. To prey on an unsuspecting, completely unarmed, vulnerable, innocent victim who was viciously slaughtered as if his life had no meaning, when she could have just elected to divorce him.
I'm not going to lie, that description of a sociopath sounds mad familiar. It sounds mad familiar to like some shit that I've been reading recently. Like, it sounds mad familiar. It reminds me of like some journal or like some kind of like album journal.
And we've seen this before time and time again, as if his life had no value. And she and her lover showed Fabio Sementilli no mercy. She's not deserving of any mercy of this court. She hasn't admitted to anything that she's done. She hasn't taken any responsibility for her actions in this case. She's just made one excuse after another, after another, after another, as she will continue to prey on people until the day she dies. I can only hope, as his family does, that Fabio at some point lost consciousness fairly quickly with the loss of blood before he bled out. And I'm sure that at no point in time as he lay there dying, unless he was told by Robert Baker why his life had to end this way. And then to learn that she had planned this murder with Baker to have Fabio slayed initially in a public parking lot, as the court recalls, the night before he was murdered on January 22nd, a Sunday night, when she sent him out to pick up dinner. The sheer arrogance of this defendant is incredibly stunning and shocking.
The sheer arrogance of this defendant, wait till you see what's next. Like, you thought that was chilling arrogance. Wait till you hear about what's been going on elsewhere.
Caring not at all for how this would destroy her daughters' lives and the cloud that they will forever live under now going forward, based on the Sementilli name and what that means. And I know that the law says a jury can't make a decision based on emotion. And so they didn't really get to learn much about who Fabio Sementilli was. But I did, over the course of almost 9 years as I handled this case. I must have spoken to over 200 people in the course of my investigation and preparation of this case.
That's the length she's going to, right? So if you think deleting Discord logs, and messages and, you know, leaving the car, the car was one street over and we thought it would stop, she out here interviewing looking at hundreds of pieces of evidence and testimony.
Case, and I couldn't find anybody. Although I asked, because I was sure there had to be a skeleton somewhere, I couldn't find anyone who didn't ardently believe that Fabio Sementilli was one of the most genuine, wonderful people they had ever met or ever worked with or ever worked for.
Look, it's just so sad. Right? I'll leave it there. You can go and do your research on her in your own time. Okay, I'm hearing that Beth Silver, I'm not going to lie, I'm hearing that she's very selective with her cases and she rarely steps in and gets involved unless it's special circumstance homicides, all right, or a massive conspiracy. And I'm hearing she plays for keeps and she gets involved in cases that she intends to win. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, so I think this is very bad news for David. He could well be facing the death penalty. Let's see. If this reporting from TMZ, right, these are just my opinions and my research. This is TMZ saying that David's likely to be indicted in the Celeste Rivas murder. So you heard it from me, all right? You know, TMZ is saying he's likely to be indicted. I'm saying that if he's really up against Beth Silverman, he's likely to be facing the death penalty. But that's just my opinion, okay? Let me know what you guys think down below. This is getting absolutely crazy, and I think in In a couple, 2 to 6 months' time, we're going to know exactly how this is going to play out, and it's not going to be pretty. And if I was accused of these heinous crimes, I wouldn't even want to take it to trial. I would want mercy. I would plead guilty and say, just don't give me the death penalty, okay? But hey, that's what happens when you go up against a sniper. Let me know what you thought of this video. I'll be back with another one soon, man. Peace.